Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this month's Tuesday with CKLS. We are lucky enough to be joined by Tess Wilson and Margie Sheppard. They are going to be talking to us today about citizen science. So Margie and Tess, take it away.
Okay, well, hello everybody, and thank you to CKLS for inviting us to speak to you today. And welcome to our presentation entitled Engage, Enrich, and Enlighten, Citizen Science for Libraries Made Easy. And some of you may have seen us do this presentation at ARSL, and some of you may have not. So I'm sure that many of you have heard the term citizen science, but you're not exactly sure what it means. So today we're going to introduce you to the wonderful world of citizen science from our perspective and share some tips on how to involve your community in one of the many, many cool projects that are out there available. Slide 2, please. All right, so I'm Margie Sheppard, and many of you may know me, and some of you may not know me, but I work for CKLS, and I'm currently the Outreach and Technology Coordinator for the Network of the National Library of Medicine Mid-Continental Region. And today I'm co-presenting with my colleague Tess Wilson, the Community Engagement Coordinator for the NNLM Middle Atlantic region. So to get started, we're each going to give you a little bit of perspective on how we got interested in citizen science. And so I'm going to go ahead and go first. So I first became excited about this when I was living in central Kansas. I live in Olathe now on the eastern edge of the state. And we lived very close to a waterfowl refuge, and we're also on the migratory path for the monarch butterflies. And I became involved in examining or looking for some non-invasive species of milkweed that I could put in my garden, because that's the prime food source of monarchs as they make their long trek to South America. And also I got into, counting birds and took part in a lot of birding activities. So after I joined NNLM, I learned about the host of citizen science projects that are available out there that can advance medical health and wellness research. And it's not just all work. A lot of them are really, really fun and very engaging. So from there on, I was really hooked. So this year, I've been taking part in flu and COVID near you. And I'm actually just today put out my bird feeders, and I'm getting ready for my backyard bird count. So Tess?
Nice, thanks, Margie. So my name is Tess Wilson, and I'm actually originally from Kansas, just north of Topeka. So it's great to be here today for more than one reason. I got involved with citizen science. Really, the most recent example of my involvement in citizen science was when I moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I currently live. I wanted to get to know my community, and one way that I do that is by volunteering with local organizations. So I started volunteering with the watershed that's right near where I live now. Actually, it was a little farther than the place I first lived when I moved here, but it's right down the road now, which is nice. But I got involved with just volunteering and sort of tree tending and things like that. And then the more involved I got, the more involved they let me be. And so now I serve on the monitoring committee, and I do some sampling with them about every month. It's slowed down because of COVID, but every month we get out there, we put on our galoshes, and we collect samples to just check on the watershed and see how things are going. And as a former youth librarian, I also was really interested in how to involve citizen science in my programming, and found a lot of ways to sneak it in, specifically with iNaturalist, because that's just such a fun introduction to the peer review process, to open data sets. So I've been really interested in citizen science personally, but also professionally. And I think Margie will agree with me that I feel really lucky that I get to incorporate it into my work now. So we're both really excited to be here and share all these resources with you.
Okay, so though some of you might be familiar with these acronyms, it's a little easy, it's pretty easy actually to get confused who Tess and I actually are. So before we get into this webinar, I just want to give you a short introduction to our organization. So the National Institutes of Health is the nation's leading medical research agency. Many of you might be more familiar with the National Cancer Institute, which is one of the many institutes that is in centers at NIH. Of course, with COVID in the news, you may be more familiar with NIH. The National Library of Medicine is also an institute at NIH. It's the world's largest biomedical library, which maintains and makes available a vast print collection, produces electronic information and resources like one of my favorites, Medline Plus and PubMed. NNLM is the network of the National Library of Medicine. So we are the outreach arm of NLM. And the NNLM is made up currently of 8 geographical regions. 8 health sciences libraries function as our regional medical library for the respective region that they're in. So the RML is responsible for coordinating the operations of the network of libraries and also other organizations to carry out regional and national programs. So the RMLs ensure a continuity of quality service for core programs of the NNLM and cooperatively design, implement, and evaluate innovative approaches to serve the health information needs of health professionals and our diverse public. Okay, so at the NNLM, our mission is to provide equal access to biomedical information to health professionals, as well as access to quality health information for the general public. So they are actually better equipped to make informed decisions about their health. So this is why Tess and I are really passionate about teaching classes like this one about media literacy, because just like digital literacy, it's an essential part of navigating the really complex health environment in a connected world. So we do this through a lot of resources on our website. We do funding of projects, in-person trainings, and webinars like this one. So please do join. If your institute is not a member of the network, just please consider it. It's completely free. Once you sign up, you'll get weekly postings about our resources, training, funding, and more. And you may have seen me send out repeated emails about our funding. So do sign up and take advantage, because this year we didn't have a lot of people taking advantage of all the resources that we have available. So hopefully next year that changes. All right, so today, this is our agenda. And so by the end of this webinar, we want you to be able to describe the different aspects of citizen science, share specific examples of health-related projects in the field, and know about ways and explain ways that libraries and librarians can get involved with citizen science, identify resources and funding opportunities in the field of citizen science, and also we're going to be able to discuss the challenges with citizen science. All right, so let's get started with the fun part. So we know that millions of people out there love science and exploration. They like observing things in nature, hearing about the latest breakthrough in science, and taking part in activities that improve their health and well-being. So we also know that the research process can take a very long time to complete. So in order to get research done in a timely fashion, scientists need volunteers to help them, but they often can't find each other. Next, please. So you likely already know someone who's a citizen scientist. They're participating in gathering data out of personal interest or maybe out of need. So for example, last year in January alone, 1.5 million bird enthusiasts added data to eBird, an online database of bird observations, and providing scientists and researchers and amateur naturalists with real-time data about bird distribution and abundance. And there's also currently over 1.5 million water testing monitors that are employed today by people. So water testing takes place for many, many reasons. We're looking for existing problems. So one major reason, obviously, is to ensure that water is suitable for its intended use. You know, is it drinking water, or is it for animals to drink? And we also want to track changes over time and determine the effectiveness of the treatment systems that we're using. And a really interesting one is that over 5 million people help the SETI Institute monitor sounds from space. So with relatively little training, volunteers can be taught how to capture the data that's needed for research projects. And what this does is it reduces the time it would take a small group of scientists to accomplish the task. So with data collected by citizen scientists, it's easier also for policy and management decisions to be made. especially regarding community concerns. And there is a large economic impact. 1.3 to 2.3 million volunteers contribute 667 million to 2.5 billion in kind annually.
All right, so before we tell you more about the basics of citizen science and crowdsourcing, I wanted to gauge your familiarity with this area. So if you just want to put in the chat if you have ever participated in a citizen science project before, and if you want to tell us what it was, that would be great too. But just pop it in the chat if you have participated in citizen science before. Bird count, yeah, that's a great one.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay.
Oh,
yes, stall catchers. We'll talk about stall catchers. That's a great one. That's a really fun gamified one. So first of all, what is citizen science? Well, according to the Environmental Protection Agency, citizen science uses the collective strength of communities and the public to identify research questions, collect and analyze data, interpret results, make new discoveries, and develop technologies and applications. So in other words, citizen science is when global citizens unite to make discoveries. Citizen science projects are extremely diverse, so no matter what your audience is and what your community needs might be, there's likely a suitable project that you could look into. Citizen science participants can mark observations in an app, they can identify animals and plants online, or even put on waterproof boots and wade through wetlands. So there's a wide range of participation. There are a lot of great definitions of citizen science out there. A good way to think about citizen science is that it usually has a few complementary components, an existing research project and public participation. The Citizen Science Association defines citizen science as the involvement of the public in scientific research, whether community-driven research or global investigations. So going a little bit deeper into that definition, SciStarter, which is an organization that we'll talk about a lot throughout today's workshop, they note that there are 4 key features of citizen science practice. 1 is that anyone can participate. 2 is participants use the same protocol, so data can be combined and remain at a high quality. 3, data can help scientists come to real conclusions. And 4, a wide community of scientists and volunteers work together and share data to which both the public and scientists have access. So another good way of thinking about citizen science is by what it isn't, and it isn't participating in a medical trial or a social science survey, primarily because that information is not always available to everyone at the end of that study. So citizen science happens in a lot of different disciplines, and we'll talk about some of these today as well. Astronomy, engineering, ecology, psychology. Today we'll talk a lot about health-related or medical projects, but we'll also dive into some natural environmental health projects as well. And citizen science, if done correctly, should really benefit all parties involved. There are global benefits to citizen science. So just to make sure we're on the same page and that everyone who does citizen science is on the same page, there are some key principles. These 10 principles were put together by the European Citizen Science Association. And this sort of guides the discipline of citizen science. So principle 1, they should result in new knowledge. Principle 2, there should be a genuine science outcome as a result. Principle 3, everyone should benefit. So that's the participants, the scientists, and the public. Principle 4, participation should be encouraged at all stages of the research process, not just data collection. So that's another reason why, for example, participating in a research study isn't necessarily citizen science, because we're not involved at every stage. Principle 5, citizen scientists should be able to know how their collected data are used and what might result from the data collection. So transparency at every step. 6, like all research approaches, there are limitations and biases to consider, but citizen science allows for greater democratization of the scientific process. 7, data and results, again, should be open access. 8, if citizens work on projects, they should be acknowledged for their work. 9, programs should be evaluated. And principle 10, considering the legal and ethical issues surrounding projects. And because internet-capable mobile devices are becoming increasingly ubiquitous, it's now easier than ever for members of the public to participate in projects like these. So really, anyone at all can participate. There are, in some cases, age limits. So for example, the Smithsonian transcription services that invite people to transcribe some of their collections, they have an age limit of 14 and over. But that doesn't mean that those citizen science projects can't be family events. So you could still involve your younger family members, even if they aren't quite eligible to have their own account or they don't have their own phone to participate. They're really adaptable to family activities, which is a really cool part about citizen science. Now, we have talked a lot about the bird count already, but while the term might be new to some, citizen science has actually existed for centuries. So throughout scientific history, researchers have leveraged the power of the people to make valuable breakthroughs. Because of the hard work of amateur scientists and curious observers, long-standing projects like the Christmas bird count from the Audubon Society have achieved remarkable milestones and actually contributed to real policy change. These types of scientific undertakings are unique in a few important ways. One, because the capacity is increased exponentially when the workload is shared between scientists and members of the public, the pace of data collection has the potential to increase significantly. So when we think about, someone mentioned stall catchers, and we'll talk about that later, but that allows for a huge amount of data to be collected all at once. And the workload is spread among millions of people, hundreds of thousands of millions of people. But another reason these are unique, these projects, are that they create a unique opportunity for hands-on education and engagement, which can result in a lasting impact on the participants involved. And participation in citizen science is a chance for individual community members to engage physically with their environment, which potentially strengthens their connection with local ecosystems and encourages a more intimate relationship with the world around them. Like my relationship with my watershed, I'm pretty intimately involved with my community just because of those citizen science projects that I do. So for those reasons and a lot more, citizen science projects have become an increasingly popular avenue for engagement. So I just wanted to give you a few more examples of citizen science projects you might be familiar with, but some you might not be. This is the Big Bumblebee Discovery Project, and that was a 2014 initiative in the UK. It aimed to engage children and their parents with STEM subjects by enabling them to take part in observing and recording bumblebees visiting lavender flowers, which is one of the cutest citizen science projects I can imagine. Citizen science has also helped amateur astronomers discover new worlds from the comfort of their computer screen. So the Planet Hunters project on Zooniverse trains volunteers how to find undiscovered planets by looking at how the brightness of a star changes over time by reviewing publicly available Kepler data. And this project was so successful. So we started off with bees, and this zooms way out. They found 5 confirmed new planets and a lot of other potential candidates. So this can have huge impacts. And this project is actually now in its 2nd phase, and it's still going strong. The Stream Tracker project was actually inspired by Pokemon Go, which I'm sure if anyone has any youth services background, I'm sure you're more than familiar with Pokemon Go. But this was recruiting people to check in on small streams in their area and report back basic information, like where is it flowing, dry, or frozen? This was a UC Santa Barbara professor, Thomas Turner, saw this post online, and he rushed down to the beach with his wife and 4-year-old son. And he posted a series of photos to iNaturalist, which we'll talk about. So it turns out it's extremely rare to spot a hoodwinker in California. And he said, It's possible that hoodwink or sunfish wander widely and the sightings off West Coast North America are of occasional strays, but we don't know if these odd sightings are a relatively new thing, perhaps linked to warming oceans and changing ocean currents, or if the occasional straying sunfish is unrelated to climate change. So because the general public is involved in observations like iNaturalist observations, it allows for a lot of eyes to be on nature at the same time. So we might be able to track things that we haven't been able to before because members of the public are reporting them. And citizen science can be used to improve public health too. So this project aims to develop models that predict outbreaks of mosquito-borne illnesses. To take part in this NASA crowdsourcing effort, people can download the Globe Observer app on their smartphones and input data on mosquito location through the Mosquito Habitat Mapper tool. And that information is then funneled into a global database that's used by scientists and public health authorities to try and manage the risk of disease in their communities.
Okay, so citizen science projects are typically broken down by the level of participation involved or expected from participants. So in 2009, the Center for Advancement of Informal Science Education brought together all the leading researchers and practitioners in the movement and tasked them with just describing the different forms of public participation in scientific research. So this report detailed 3 commonly accepted types of citizen science: contributory, collaborative, and co-created. So I'm going to go through a little bit more into detail about those so you kind of have an idea about what's out there and available. And these definitions that I'm pulling from are from the Center for Innovative Research in Cyber Learning. Okay, so the first one is contributory, and these projects are designed by the research scientists alone, and the scientists then ask members of the public to contribute just data to the research project. So these types of projects have the lowest level of engagement with the public and follow a top-down approach. So this form of citizen science is best employed when a research study or project needs a really large group of data from a huge geographic range. And the term crowdsourcing that you may have heard, and we use it a lot at NNLM, is a contributory technique that utilizes the internet and social media to collect responses from people all across a wide geographic area within a really short time frame typically. So we talked about this before, the quintessential contributory science project is the Audubon Christmas bird count. So other examples of a contributory project include this really cool protein folding game called Fold It, we'll talk about that a little bit later, I think, and various astronomy focused projects. For example, citizensky.org is a really cool one. And in addition, that Zoomverse platform, which we have a list of resources that you can look at, this platform curates an entire collection of contributory citizen science projects from which all kinds of people can find projects based on their interests. Another word that's out there in this, this particular type of research is a BioBlitz. This is another example of this kind of a project. So this is an event that focuses on finding and identifying as many species as possible in a specific area over a really short time. So for instance, you could also call it a biological inventory or a biological census. So primary goals of these are maybe tracking plants, maybe animals, fungi, or other organisms that live in a place. And collaborative projects are great. They are aimed to engage the public in ways that go well beyond just the collection of data, to include other components. So for instance, learning about the scientific process, such as how to analyze data, assistance in getting the findings out, or other methods for the public to use data collected for their own purposes. So like contributory projects, the research questions, the design, and the data collection protocols originate in solely from the scientific community. But collaborative projects reach out to achieve different modes of engagement with the public. So For instance, here's an example is in 1995, the Global Learning and Observation to Benefit the Environment, or GLOBE project, was started. So what this project does is it provides students, teachers, citizens with atmospheric and earth science activities developed by scientists and validated by teachers. So when they participate in this hands-on data collection about their local environment and put their local information into a global perspective, students and the public can then learn all about the scientific process and contribute to the understanding about the changes on the earth and their global environment. So that's pretty powerful if you think about being in Kansas and doing something like this and how it impacts the whole world. Another example is the Billion Oyster Project. This is a project that is focusing on the restoration of New York Harbor, and it uses partnerships that span across a lot of local organizations. So the co-created projects originate and grow from start to finish as partnerships between scientists and members of the public. So sometimes these are this is referred to as community science. It's the co-created projects are often relatively small in their nature, and they're due to the focused intent to investigate a really specific concern or an occurrence. So a co-created project usually begins with a question that the public or the community has, rather than something that's originated out in the scientific world. And what happens is they leverage the different partnerships between the researchers and the community, led organizations and NGOs. So two examples are Weather Blur and Public Lab. These are co-created projects in which citizens, teachers, students can propose to study a question or a problem in the community related to the weather or the environment. Specifically, Weather Blur allows citizens to connect with different communities to conduct investigations and share the data across the site. So you can see it's pretty impactful. So Tess, we're gonna let you take this one away.
Yeah, so the NNLM supports citizen involvement in scientific research. So we care about citizen science because it's a great way to break down some of the barriers between researchers and the public. And it also helps foster a better understanding of data in an increasingly data-driven world. So it's become a focus area of our institution for a lot of reasons, including the opportunity to bring consumers into scientific conversations, which gives the public more agency and understanding. And on top of that, we believe citizen science and crowdsourcing are wonderful ways to build community. So among our other roles, we do see ourselves as a conduit for community connections. So this kind of research and collaboration really aligns perfectly with our mission. National Library of Medicine resources like Kids Environment, Kids Health provide background information, easy to understand definitions, and links to more advanced information that could be helpful for citizen scientists involved in environmental health projects. NLM also has resources that complement basic health and chemical research. So I'm going to talk about a few of these in more detail. First, Kids Environment, Kids Health. So the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences Kids page is a government educational website that was actually authorized by a 1997 presidential memorandum. It's designed to teach children about the connections between their health and the environment. So if you're giving a presentation about environmental health or interested in supplementing an environmental citizen science project, or even if you're just looking for general information about environmental health research or the Institute itself, this page will help a lot. Fact sheets and brochures are available for free download, and that includes asthma and its triggers, autism and the environment, children's health, why the environment matters, and also the free downloadable book, Sharon Finds the Environment. And now you're probably familiar with Medline Plus, but I will just talk about it for a moment. This is a great resource that we love to share with our communities. You can imagine it as your health information Google. So it includes health topics on really important health issues like asthma, cancer, diabetes, a lot of environmental health concerns. It includes drug and supplement information, videos, health quizzes, games. One of my favorite resources is the Medical Encyclopedia because it's a really great one-stop shop for medical and health definitions And instead of just Googling those definitions and getting flooded with ads and maybe not reliable information, you can go straight to the medical encyclopedia and know that you're getting reliable definitions sourced from government organizations. It also includes clinical trial information, easy to read health information, and a lot of information in other languages. So you can use Medline Plus for yourself, but it's a great resource for any kind of health or science related program you might be doing at your library. Because like I said, it links to trusted government and university resources and websites like the NIH, Mayo Clinic, and Nemours. And like I said, there are never any ads or endorsements on Medline Plus. So this is a really cool resource that it's called OpenEye, and it's an open access biomedical search engine. And I love telling people about this just because it's such an interesting little database that we have access to. So there are 3.7 million images from over 1.2 million PubMed Central articles. There are X-rays, radiology reports, images from the NLM History of Medicine collection, and a lot of illustrations as well. So one really cool feature of this is that it allows users to drag and drop an image to find similar photos. This is just a really interesting tool to use, and I like to promote it not just for health professionals, but also for creative use as well, because some of the images in here are just really fascinating. But in health information, related to health information as well, it is pretty handy to have this available just because it has so many open access X-rays, scans. It's a pretty fascinating resource. ChemID Plus is an excellent resource for citizen scientists because you can use it to locate information on over 400,000 chemicals. ChemID's advanced search lets users draw their own structures and perform chemical similarity and substructure searches and search by any combination of name, registry number, molecular formula, molecular weight, etc. So this is a pretty advanced resource, but it is pretty handy if you're doing a citizen science project that has to do with chemicals or chemistry. This is a pretty great database to have access to. And to keep in mind, if you have folks who are studying for exams, anyone who might be able to use this ChemID Plus, it's a pretty handy tool. This is one of my favorites. NLM Digital Collections is the National Library of Medicine's free online archive of book, serial, archives, and manuscripts, as well as film resources. So a lot of these resources are in the public domain and they're freely available to download. Digital Collections provides preservation of and unique access to NLM's rich historical resources. There are if you just spend some time clicking around in the digital collections, you'll happen upon some really cool stuff. There are medical advertisements from history, health announcements. It's a really cool collection. And Profiles in Science contains archival collections of 20th century leaders in biomedical research and public health. So this collection, like NLM Digital Collections, it's not necessarily directly related to citizen science, but you could certainly use them in your science programming. So these profiles would make great supplemental resources for any citizen science project brought to your library, for example. And the digital collections have some wonderful, unique resources that might fit perfectly within a citizen science programming idea. This was formerly known as the National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine, now called the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health. This is the lead government agency for scientific research on the diverse medical and healthcare systems, practices, and products that aren't generally considered part of conventional medicine. So they work hard to determine what's promising, what helps and why, what doesn't work, and what is safe when it comes to alternative medicines and practices. So again, this is a handy tool for your own use, but it can absolutely be referred to when you're talking to library users. So how many times have we been asked health information questions that have to do with new or alternative treatments? Thinking back on my own days as a reference librarian in a small library, these types of questions were about as ubiquitous as general health questions. So this way you can feel confident leading these folks to a trustworthy resource that not only acknowledges the validity of some alternative treatments, but also gauges harm and benefit through a scientific lens.
Okay, so we've mentioned SciStarter, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about it because it's probably one of the, since I started working with NNLM, one of the most amazing organizations that I've been able to work with. And I feel really privileged to be able to talk with these people because they're so excited about this subject. You can't help it being excited. So basically what SciStarter is an online community that they are dedicated to improving the citizen science experience for project managers, as well as the people that participate. Currently, they have over 3,000 projects and events that are searchable not only by location and topic, but also age level. And you can join SciStarter. It's free to do. And so members can then track their contributions and provide a lot of valuable feedback to the people that run this group. It also supports researchers in managing their projects. So you'll see a lot of things that have been posted from all over the world. It also includes a lot of best practices for engaging participant partners. So this past April, SciStarter partnered with NNLM to celebrate Citizen Science Month and mark the release of a new book that they put out, the Field Guide to Citizen Science. And I know that the CKLS rotating collection has at least one copy of this. So this, while SciStarter has thousands of projects listed on their website, NNLM decided to select a few projects that are health related to support and promote among the network libraries and community-based organizations, and just the public in general. So these projects align a lot with our mission. So it made sense to go ahead and get involved with these. So they also increase the public's access to reliable health information. The selected projects include, and we've mentioned this, the gamified Alzheimer's project, stall catchers. There's a litter tracking app, there's water testing experiments, and a lot more. So the month culminated with a webinar that highlighted these projects, and it introduced attendees to the NNLM and invited libraries to participate in citizen science. And it also featured a reading from the field guide from the author Darlene Cavalier. What began as one webinar to launch this exciting new book, it evolved into much more with the help of public libraries and researchers. So following the success of the webinar, NNLM and SciStarter sought creative ways to more directly involve the public libraries in citizen science. So with the support of the All of Us research program, a webinar series was launched building on April's momentum to feature public library staff that are having actual conversations with some of the researchers and designers of the projects that are these health-related projects that we chose. And in July, to complement summer library program, there was a series kicked off with 2 workshops. The first webinar was really interesting, and it spotlighted Dr. Connie Walker, who's the director of the Globe at Night research project. And this is a project that uses crowdsourcing to raise public awareness about light pollution and its impact. So Dr. Walker was interviewed by a librarian from South Butler Community Library in Saxonburg, Pennsylvania, and then people were able to ask questions. And it was really fascinating. And she was just a really great speaker and really nice to have kick the series off. So the second workshop that they had was hosted by Tredyffrin Township Library, which is in Eastern Pennsylvania. And this time the Stall Catchers Research Project was highlighted, and the librarian interviewed Dr. Pietro Michelucci. The series then continued throughout the summer and into the fall, and it featured public libraries from around the country and researchers eager to expand upon their crowdsourcing projects So with the help of SciStarter staff, the All of Us research project and outreach coordinators and engagement coordinators from NNLM, this is a really, really low effort undertaking that a public library can get involved in, but one that has really high impact and it reaches a wide variety of people. So we're still having the series going on. So there's more webinars that are upcoming, and you can find links on this slide. And there's also opportunities to work with SciStarter to host your own event. So we'll talk more about that later. So how can you bring citizen science to your library? Well, for public libraries who hope to incorporate crowdsourcing and citizen science projects into the program, there's so many options for entry points and commitment levels. So I'm going to go over a few of the resources and the tools and the approaches that might prove helpful for you. Okay, so the first thing I've mentioned SciStarter, check out their project finder. So this is a really great searchable database. It's full of thousands of projects that are active and you can participate in, and the range of engagement levels, whatever your research goal is. There's certainly going to be a project out there that complements your community and what the library is hoping to accomplish. You know, you can even look for projects that somebody can do over a lunch break, or when we get back into more conventional places like sports stadiums, you could take part in it there, or you could do them exclusively online. So there's some really great projects out there. So I'm going to touch on a few of those right now. So the Globe at Night project, which I mentioned earlier, it's really fascinating. It's an international campaign. So those of you that grew up in rural Kansas or in a rural area that's been in grown up around you, the Globe at Night project might be really interesting. So what this is it raises public awareness about the impact of light pollution. So it not only affects our view of the stars, but it also affects the way that we sleep and the sleeping and breeding habits of animals. And it also wastes a lot of energy and money. So it estimates anywhere from 2 to 10 billion a year. So you can join other citizen scientists by measuring your night sky observations and submitting them. You just go outside at least an hour after sunset, and that depends, you know, the summer or winter, when the moon is not quite up yet. And then let your eyes adjust to the darkness for about 10 minutes and then start your observations. So your insights can then help people become aware of light pollution levels and inform new solutions to keep our night skies healthy. I mentioned Flu Near You. I just did this morning. So this project leverages the power of the crowd to provide real-time information about influenza, and they also expanded it to include COVID. So this was created by epidemiologists at Harvard and Boston's Children's Hospital. And what it does is it complements traditional tracking methods and provides a lot of useful public information. So you just complete a quick weekly survey to share whether you feel healthy or sick, and that's it. And then the participation is free, and it's also confidential. So scientists takes this information along with all the other reporting to generate local and national maps of the influenza illness, and they also turned around and did this with COVID. So it provides public health people and researchers real-time anonymous data to help understand the spread that could also lead to the next pandemic. This is one I really like. I mean, while it's named the debris tracker, it's also straight up the debris tracker. So what this does is it helps organizations collect data about where litter is showing up across the country. So it's not just near the water. So this data contributes to maps used by researchers working on managing pollution worldwide. And materials are available in all kinds of languages for people to get tracking. So you can record the location of the debris on the debris in your area through the tracker app. And when you're out walking, it also uses GPS data to record the finding. So then you can submit that picture of the debris you've tracked and view the map data. I think we mentioned Icy Change, but if not, this is a really great global community that documents the changes of the environment with weather, climate, and each post is then synced with weather and climate data. So It's a pretty big way to investigate the bigger picture of climate trends, and community members can then use this information to track changes over time and how it impacts the community members' daily lives. So what's interesting is this app, you can use it and then submit your observations, but you also have the ability to personalize, measure and track your own local climate impacts. And so then local partners can maybe use this to apply community insights into the resilience planning for the area, or ADA and infrastructure design. And here's the famous stall catcher project. You know, sometimes we've talked about it so much, just take a glance at it because it is pretty cool. They have a great website and it's very engaging. So this was designed by researchers at Cornell to advance Alzheimer's solutions. What this project focuses on is reduced blood flow in the brain. So the symptoms of Alzheimer's have been known for quite some time, but nobody knew exactly why reduced blood flow happened in the brain. So researchers are now finding this connection between blood flow and memory. So, and they need your help to help understand this relationship further. So what you do is you can help by playing this game, and you view short videos from the actual brains of mice and catch the stalls. So they teach you how to score the blood vessels as flowing or stalled. So even the most powerful computer technologies cannot do this. It needs the human eye to be able to capture this. So with people taking part in this, it's processes, you know, decades worth of data, which is really huge in advancing Alzheimer's research. So this is kind of a cool one for libraries. So you could participate by creating teams to see how many stalls each team catches, or maybe challenge another library to participate and see what impact you can all make. Crowd the tap. This is, you know, I think about houses that don't have current plumbing. So the mission of Crowd the Tap is to ensure that our drinking water is safe in the United States. So the goal of this project is to ID areas for tap water testing and infrastructure replacement. So this project is funded by 3 different organizations, the EPA, Virginia Tech, and North Carolina State. Participating in this inventory collection connects people all across, not only in your neighborhood, but also beyond, who want to make drinking water safe for everyone. You think about Flint, Michigan, I'm sure all of you heard about that in the news. Eterna, it invites contributors to become RNA scientists. This is pretty high level, but it's all done with citizen science. So contributors solve puzzles to design special RNA-based medicines and sensors, and then they get feedback on their designs from people at a lab in Stanford. So it's a group effort to build knowledge about how RNA works. And Fold It. This is the one I mentioned earlier. This is a little more high-level computer game, but it enables you to contribute to important scientific research. And what the data that they're looking for is to find out if human pattern recognition and puzzle-solving abilities make them more efficient than existing computer games at pattern-folding tasks. So if this turns out to be true, then they're hoping to take human strategies and teach them to computers to help fold proteins even faster. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the barriers, because we know that we make it sound so easy, and you all are in small rural areas, and so there are a lot of barriers. So Tess and I have identified these 4 main problems, but you might have others. So if you do and you need some feedback in trying to cross those barriers, please get a hold of us and or ask for suggestions in the chat. So we know that internet access is a really big problem in many rural communities, especially. We learned a lot about COVID and its effect, as people have limited resources and they may not be able to budget for internet. And then you might ask, well, how do I get people interested when I have so many other programs going on? And what do I do if I'm a library with 1 or 2 staff members? And my budget is already stretched. Where am I going to get money to launch a citizen science program? So first, we're going to address internet access. So we know that many rural areas lack this, and it's called the digital divide. And it was real when I was living out there, and I'm sure it hasn't gone away. So What's happening is many libraries are starting hotspot lending programs or getting back into it for various reasons. So with many of the nation's libraries being closed for weeks due to the pandemic, those who relied on library for free access to computers and broadband were really left out in the cold. So if you're one of these libraries that is lending hotspots, we'd like to know about it. And if you're thinking about it, please get a hold of us, because there's a lot of resources out there that are available to help launch these programs and to sustain them. One of the things is, if you're hosting a citizen science program, how cool would it be then to be able to land a hotspots to make participation much easier? We also know that a lot of people rely on their smartphone for internet access. So many of these programs they're responsive to smartphone display, and they can be done offline as well through through the use of the apps. So there's also programs that can be done without the internet. I find this one really fascinating. So for instance, backyard bark beetles was found on that can be found on SciStarter. It's a low-cost project that can be done at home with easy to access materials. So basically, participants collect bark beetles for 3 consecutive months. They pack them up, they send them the collected beetles to the project scientists, who then identify them and plot the results on a map. So we do know that there's so many of these beetles that are very harmful to our trees and to the environment. Another great idea is that libraries have built kits for circulation for a lot of citizen science projects. You can find resources. There's a resource page for librarians on the SciStarter website, and it'll tell you everything you need to build these low-cost kits. And also, a lot of data can be collected and then later entered when an internet connection is needed. And then also, I want you to really consider getting out there and partnering with schools in your area. With learning being done both in the classroom and virtually, a lot of school districts have been supplying hotspots to those who don't have internet access. There's so many great citizen science projects that can be integrated into the classroom. And so contact those science teachers and school librarians and share what you've learned today, and start working on these partnerships. So what about getting people interested? Well, one of the first things that you always need to do, and we've talked about this, I know, in just other librarian areas, programming especially, is look at the issues that your community is facing. So are you in a rural area where water quality is a huge concern, and a lot of your patrons are getting their water from a well? Or maybe you have a lot of family members in your community that have been affected by Alzheimer's. So I know a lot of you are close to waterfowl refuges. So do you take part in the bird count or the butterfly tagging? If you take some time to identify these projects and the things that your patrons care about, you might find something that's really going to meet the need and make people interested in taking part in them. So it's, think about the people that come in and out of your library, and maybe they're not taking part in your book club or the other activities, and ask them what their outside interests are, and it may really surprise you.
So another great way to bring in other groups or utilize existing networks is to partner with a Scouts group, and there's probably one near you. They're great groups to work with, and programming and volunteerism are already built into their objectives. And there are even quite a few badges that your citizen science project might be able to help them earn. And there's also an existing relationship between SciStarter and the Scouts that make it really easy to pick projects that are suited towards that group. So if you check out scistarter.com/Girl Scouts, that will give you a good idea of some of the projects that have already been chosen for Scouts troops. And involve local conservation organizations, local watershed associations, nature conservancies, parks departments, local researchers, tree tenders. Those can be really invaluable resources for citizen scientists, and staff might even be willing to serve as a guest expert on a webinar, or they might have suggestions for projects that you could participate in. So this is one of my local organizations that I was talking about earlier, the 9 Mile Run Watershed, and that is actually me doing some of that research. So don't be afraid to reach out to organizations that are near you. So I wanted to point out Foldscope, and Margie brought up creating kits for citizen science. And I know that can be a little bit dicey now with in-person or the Realm project, how we're doing distribution of items, but when we're able to do kits, Foldscope is so cool. They were founded on the principle of increasing access to scientific tools. So they sell paper microscopes that you can easily fold up, and they're easy to use, easy to store. So they sell classroom sets, which I think includes 20 Foldscope microscopes, and teachers kits. The kits are relatively low in cost, and each purchase helps fund the shipment of Foldscopes to countries with limited access to scientific instruments. So they're a cool kit to have handy in your library, especially when in-person visits can happen again. And even if your community can't get together in person right now to do this, there's a community of Foldscope users that post their pictures online. So it's exciting to discover others' discoveries and share your own as well. And another resource to take advantage of is the digital and free Librarian's Guide to Citizen Science. So that's a product of SciStarter and Arizona State University. And it was built with library workers in mind. And it's full of replicable examples, reputable resources. It's a really great guide for beginners, but it also has enough tangible tools and tricks that those with experience with citizen science can also really benefit from this. And again, that's free online as well. And it even has guides to bringing citizen science to your library, what level of engagement you want to have. It's a really great guide. Virtual engagement, as we know, is a necessity right now, but it's good to keep it in mind even when we're able to meet in person again. So you can reach a wider audience virtually, and it's potentially more cost effective and less of a burden on staff and space. So for example, you could model a webinar after that SciStarter summer webinar series. You could invite in an expert who's involved with a citizen science project, let them introduce your community to their work. You could look locally, or you could use SciStarter's network to find researchers. While these virtual platforms cost money, they're definitely worth having even beyond the purely virtual moment that we're in now. So when you're using these platforms for participatory citizen science workshops, you want to make them as interactive as possible, using whatever bells and whistles come with that particular platform. Another great avenue for virtual engagement is your social media channels. So if you have a Facebook page posting about a certain project and asking people to participate, the same goes for Instagram, making use of hashtags and asking your community to post about citizen science work. Again, iNaturalist and Marine Debris Tracker are really great examples of this. And finally, encouraging a little friendly competition. So my favorite example of that was the Tredyffrin Public Library that Margie was talking about. They have 2 branches, and each branch set up an account on stall catchers, and they rivaled each other to see who could do the most stall catching. Which is such a great way to incentivize scientific research. I thought that was so creative and wonderful. And if you're looking for other ways to engage your community virtually, you can always participate in Citizen Science Month. So believe it or not, and you'll probably believe it because we're in libraries, but we are already planning for April 2021 Citizen Science Month with SciStarter. So this is a really great campaign. It requires very little on your end. There are prepared posts, there's prepared language, so you can really just copy, paste, put it on your page, and you are celebrating Citizen Science Month. And again, you can increase that engagement, you can encourage folks to participate in things, but this is a great low effort way to participate. So we say all this realizing that not everything is as cheap as sharing a post on Facebook or Instagram. So taking on a larger citizen science project or involving a whole community in programming can cost some money, or it could at least be enhanced with a little extra funding. So these are some resources for funding that we came up with. Considering local organizations and state agencies, again, maybe your Parks Conservancy has mini grants available, or larger companies like banks might have funds dedicated to community building. And maybe the state parks and rec office or government office offers grants. So just think creatively about those state agencies. And private foundations are worth looking into, and corporate programs as well, like Dollar General has grants available. I think Costco, a lot of grocery stores do as well. And again, a lot of that is community building. It has to be dedicated to community building. So that's a great place to look as well. And then utilizing those databases that are at our disposal as library staff. So if your library has access to Foundation Directory Online, Foundation Maps, you could use those as well. And of course, you can always contact your regional NLM office. We're divided into regional offices that serve our respective states. So you can find our information online and you can always talk to Margie. We're always happy to think creatively about citizen science projects and how to incorporate citizen science. And I know we're running up to time here. We wanted to leave you with a handful of really tangible resources to keep on your radar. So these are some books that we recommend. Citizen Science, on the top right, Citizen Science by Karen Cooper. That's a really great overview of citizen science. The Citizen Science Theory and Practice Journal is really fascinating as well. That's from the Citizen Science Association. And I'd also recommend Citizen Scientist by Mary Ellen Hannibal, the one that's kind of the second one there. That one is a really fascinating look into citizen science from the perspective of folks who have benefited from citizen science discoveries. iNaturalist, we've talked about it a lot before. It's really easy to participate. You just download the app and you can submit observations. It's a good introduction to peer review processes because your discovery gets checked by other users and then it becomes part of the map of discoveries. And it's really fun to just look at the kinds of observations and species that have occurred in your neighborhood. One really cool thing, I was doing a live demonstration of this the other day, and we noticed that there was a concentration of discoveries of observations in this one particular area, and it turned out it was right next to an elementary school. So I think that they had used iNaturalist for a project, but it was a really cool thing to see. Another app called Merlin that helps identify birds through 3 easy questions. Again, you can download that. It's really easy and fun to use. And then Budburst. You can learn about invasive species. I like to point out that Budburst, because it's talking about invasive species, this would be a great one to involve your local conservancies or parks departments in, because I guarantee you, if you bring up the opportunity to talk about invasive species to anyone that works in those organizations, they will jump on the opportunity. Everyone's always excited to get more people to know about the invasive species in their community. So ultimately, these are the reasons that we would want to bring citizen science to our library. It builds community. There's a range of engagement levels. It can be virtual or in person. There's really not an age limit for a lot of these activities. And even if there is, they still make great family activities. And they're so fun. iNaturalist is genuinely a joy to use. It's so much fun to see the observations that everyone puts into that system. You know, if you want to put in the chat something that really interested you about this, feel free. I know we ran up on time here, but if you have questions also, you can ask. Feel free to put those questions in the chat. And this is our resource list. And our emails, feel free to, I mean, I know Margie is your contact here, but if you want to reach out to me, you're more than welcome to as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And thank you so much. This is, I really, really, really love talking about citizen science, especially to our NNLM network.
Thank you, ladies, so much for sharing with this. I didn't even know how many projects are out there. I wrote down a whole bunch. I made a lot of notes. I'm going to go out and play with it, I think. One that really caught my attention was the mosquito mapper, because I am the pig pen of the mosquito world, and they smell me like Nothing. So I want to do the mosquito mapper.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Well, and it's not only if you get out of that site, I mean, they have just all kinds of things like it's just astronomy, I mean, it's just, there's so many cool things, and I'm sure you can find something to involve somebody. And while, we're medical librarians by a sense, it all affects the world. So it's very fun. And yeah, I think, I hope you've learned something, and maybe consider, adding this to your programming. And then if, I know you guys are very busy, but next summer, they always do something that complements summer reading program. So keep that in mind, and you'll probably get emails to that effect as that rolls around. So
excellent. Yeah. It does seem like there's almost a project out there for anybody's interest.
Yeah, there
you
is.
just have to know where to look for it.
Definitely.
Yep. So anyway, well, yeah, if anybody has any questions, we can hang around for a little bit, or if not, we can email us. And
we have some comments in the chat that it's very informative, a great Zoom. Thank you. Lots of ideas to process. I never knew about citizen science. I would have loved this as a kid. So you're getting
It's never too late.
That's exactly right.
yeah, I think Joy put the barcode in for maybe the book that we talked about. But
Yes,
it's a great book. Yeah.
scan books. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, yeah. So get out there and get those people that don't take part in any of the other programming involved. You may be surprised. So yeah.
Thank you so much, ladies.
You're so welcome. Yeah. Thanks. You too.
Thanks.
Yeah, appreciate you asking us. And again, join the network. And yeah, we'll see you later.
And welcome back to Kansas, Tess. I know it's not really here.
I know. It was nice to be here for a little bit.
Yeah, we were trying to get her here for ARSL, but we did it.
Oh,
I know. I was so bummed, but
I know.
another time.
Another time. All right. Well, I'm